Thank you, Jim, and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all for being here. I might add that we're going to record this session, video and audio, and make it available for those of you who couldn't be here with us in person. It's a privilege to have this opportunity to speak with you as your interim president. Let me begin by thanking the University Senate for providing this forum. Shared governance is an important principle that begins with our Senate. I also want to recognize the students in the audience who have their own Senate and who, with our faculty and staff, complete the campus community. Let us also recognize the alumni here, because I know many of our colleagues were once UAlbany students. And finally, let me appreciate the community around us. We are a public research university in the state of New York, in the city of Albany, and we serve many constituencies. Now, I know many of us stayed up very late last night, and that today we are all taking in the outcome. As an academic community, many of us will be occupied with studying and making sense of this election. In fact, Rockefeller College is putting together an event tomorrow with faculty experts to discuss the election and start a dialogue with the campus community. And I'd like to ask Carl at this point to provide us with just a few details of that event. Carl.
We're going to be holding an event in ES 242 at 4:30 p.m. It's an open dialogue across the faculty and the students to talk about the election. There'll be faculty from public administration, political science, social welfare, and history, and it's really meant to be the beginning of a dialogue that we'll be having over the next month or so to talk about the election, about how things transpired, and what it means.
Thank you, Dean Rethmeyer. I know we will continue to bring our tremendous expertise in this area to bear on the national discussion as well. Unlike the candidates last night, I only prepared one speech. And that's the speech I'm going to give, because my report to you on where we stand as a university remains the same. Our purpose today is to talk about where we stand and where we are going, especially given the leadership transition. I'm eager to hear from you, so I'll keep my remarks fairly brief to leave more room for discussion. I've asked our leadership team to sit in the front so that they can help me answer any questions. As some of you know, over the past 7 weeks, I've spent time on something of a listening tour. I've met with faculty in small groups over lunches in the Patroon Room and individually around campus and in my office over coffee. I've also met with staff and students and alumni here in Albany and in many other cities. Naturally, I also spend a lot of time with administrators, and I assure you that there is not a finer senior leadership team anywhere. I particularly want to thank and single out Interim Provost Darrell Wheeler, sitting here, with whom I am honored to serve. Thank you, sir, for taking my old job. Our primary job in the senior administration is to support the frontline work of the university, where faculty deliver and staff support the daily mission, led by department chairs, unit heads, and of course, deans. Some of you have decades of service, and we rely on you. And to our extraordinary faculty, I know why you are in this line of work, because I started the same way you did. We fell in love with our disciplines. And that passion is what makes for great scholarship, research, and creative endeavors. It also makes for high-level teaching of those subjects we love. And I have to say that one of my greatest joys in meeting you around campus is when you tell me what you're doing in your scholarship. Oftentimes, I'm out of my field, almost all the time. But I just love that, and I would encourage you to stop me and give me a nugget wherever you see me across campus. If I've heard one thing across all these conversations in this listening tour, it is that it is for us to move forward together, we must be a community. We must work together and turn our size and complexity into an advantage of strength and mutual support. We must reduce silos and look for common cause. We need to join forces in our research, like we did to win the recent $10 million NIH grant for the elimination of minority health disparities, and that deserves a round of applause. We must scale our impact the way our students do. with 900,000 hours of community service annually, and that deserves a round of applause. I agree wholeheartedly with the sentiment that we need to act as a community. So how do we do it? Fortunately, we stand on a very solid foundation. We have the right vision and the right initiatives. As a result, we have created momentum that is ours to use. Working together, we are on our way to UAlbany's largest academic expansion in 50 years. We are growing our enrollment to 20,000 students through improved admission and retention strategies. And there's good news here. Freshman to sophomore retention is at a 6-year high of 84%. Freshman applications are up 6.5%, and for the past 2 years, we've had the largest freshman classes ever. We are just beginning now to more effectively recruit transfer students. At the graduate level, we are expanding our master's enrollments through new programs and better management of existing ones. We deeply value our PhD students, some of whom will become the next generation of faculty scholars and teachers. But it is the tuition revenue from the additional undergraduates and master's students that will provide the resources we need for programmatic expansion. We are building 2 new colleges, Engineering and Applied Sciences and Emergency Preparedness, Homeland Security, and Cybersecurity. We have seen strong interest in majors and minors in these new programs, including many from out of state and internationally. This is good because these programs must carry their basic expenses with revenue from new students. We're paying special attention to the School of Business enrollments, which will enable us to grow a little and hire additional high-quality faculty. This year, we hired 73 excellent new faculty, about 25% of whom are in the new colleges. I'd like to pause here and recognize all of the new faculty members who have joined us over the past years. You are the best investments in our future that we could possibly make. We also have new academic majors and master's programs like digital forensics, a master's in international affairs, a new undergraduate major in human development, and an expanded online master's in public health. I know many people were involved in making these new programs a reality. I want to thank everyone who worked on the proposals and helped move them through the approval process, through us, through the SUNY, and through state ed. We are forging a new affiliation with the Albany Law School and building on our existing relationships like the 30-year partnership we have with the Wadsworth Laboratories and our School of Public Health. We are doubling our international recruitment and giving as many of our students possible the opportunity to study abroad. We are enhancing the use of applied learning, particularly during the sophomore year, to connect with students and internships, undergraduate research, service opportunities, study abroad, and much more. We're building on our national leadership in criminal justice, one exceptional faculty hire at a time, one national journal at a time. We're deploying Rockefeller and the School of Social Welfare in many aspects of public engagement here at home in Albany and around the world. And let me single out now the College of Arts and Sciences, our largest, which touches virtually all aspects of university life and provides outstanding programs of study across 36 majors. Thank you, Elga. By next year, we will have completed the campus center expansion and renovations, and we will break ground on the E-Tech facility on 12.5 acres that we secured from the Harriman campus. We continue our campaign to renovate the Schuyler building downtown as the home for the College of Engineering and Applied Sciences. We will renovate the structures on the podium one by one starting this summer in a truly massive program that will take well over a decade, but is absolutely necessary to secure the Uptown campus for the next century. On that note, I want to thank our facilities staff who not only oversee our renovation work, but keep the campus looking beautiful every day. That beauty not only attracts students and faculty and staff to join us, but it got us on a list of the 20 most attractive public campuses in America. Meanwhile, we are striving to meet the recommendations of our Blue Ribbon Commissions on grad stipends and on contingent faculty. We will work with our unions to forge common cause. We continue to celebrate our Educational Opportunity Program, which retained 197 out of 200 freshmen from last year and grew this year to a record freshman class of 250. And here's to our coaches and student athletes who continue to be great leaders on campus, great champions in the sports arena, and Great Danes everywhere. Is that enough examples for you? It's not a complete list, but I did promise you a somewhat shorter speech. The result of all this work is that we are on the move, or as sometimes we say to each other in my office, our time is now. We are rising at the University at Albany with a commitment to remain as affordable as possible, keeping our public mission at the center of all that we do. I have been here before. I was once the dean of an arts and sciences college at a university that went from a U.S. News ranking from 165 to 39. My college doubled in size to 6,000 students, even as the SAT scores rose 250 points. Because of that experience, I know what is possible, and I feel it happening here. To keep our momentum going, we need some smart strategies, and that is where strategic planning comes in. This work is already in motion. As many of you know, the committee is co-chaired by Darrell Wheeler and Leanne Werkela. We are starting where we are, but imagining a future that includes your ideas, includes new ideas, collected and shared this fall to be considered in the coming months for feasibility and affordability. This planning process is truly going to set the context for all of our priorities and resource allocation for the next 5 years. So this is no time to sit on the sidelines. I'm grateful to those who are serving on the steering committee, and there are 2 ways I would invite all of you to get involved. First, read and comment on the 18 futuring papers on the strategic planning website. And second, join us on December 9th and 10th for what I hope will be a remarkable event, the Concert of Ideas, which will use music to build a community of creative thinkers. As Ludwig van Beethoven once said, music is the electrical soil in which the spirit lives, thinks, and invents. There is a lot of evidence in the arts and humanities that they help us to get to a deeper, more creative thinking as a group. And I think this approach could extend past its use in strategic planning to our entire community. I know the role of arts and humanities in a public research university is a topic that many people feel very strongly about, as do I. So let me make something very clear. In this time of growth in STEM and professional fields, a commitment to the arts and humanities is not just about producing engineers or project managers who can write, no matter how important that is. It is also about attracting more students to major and minor in the arts and humanistic fields. To do that, we need to help our students and their families envision career paths to jobs and further schooling. We need to battle the perception that opportunities after graduation are not as strong for the artists and the humanists. The data simply refute that position. We just know that employers across the board want the skills that these graduates possess. Now, we got a good start in a dialogue about the role of arts and humanities at the spring faculty address last April, but we have barely scratched the surface. As promised, we have scheduled a campus conversation on this topic, which will be held on February 27th, and we will remind you of that again. Another ongoing conversation that will be a focus of the strategic plan is our commitment to diversity and inclusion. From many discussions, I am aware of the concern that despite our efforts, we are not moving fast enough or effectively enough. We must not only keep talking, we must act. One priority area is recruiting and retaining more diverse faculty members. And we must have pipelines to develop those faculty members. We are blessed with a highly diverse student population, and we need our faculty to more closely reflect that diversity. So let us continue to build a diverse community of excellence. Universities can lead social change, and what better way to do that than in educating students to live and work in an increasingly diverse country, especially now. So another priority is to keep having broad campus conversations. After all, what do we academics do better than talk? Let us use that strength to teach each other how diversity is excellence. Another important aspect of our campus climate is the response to prevention of sexual assault. Under the Office of the Title IX Coordinator, we have launched a very ambitious program of empowered bystander training and awareness program that is already having an impact in a very short time. We set out this year to train 25% of our students to respond to violent situations. Bystander intervention is successful because it engages so many people from across our campus and the broader community. There are some powerful practices here that we may want to replicate in other initiatives, anywhere we need change agents to lead us to a cultural shift. And as it so happens, tomorrow evening at 6 o'clock, Channel 13 will be running a story that features the bystander training and the work of our students are doing under the leadership of the Title IX Coordinator, Chantal Cleary, and the Advocacy Center for Sexual Violence Director, Carol Stanger. I invite you all to tune in and watch Channel 13 at 6 o'clock tomorrow. I think there are a few other things that we must do. I think we should stop focusing entirely on graduation as the endpoint of our responsibility and look to the impact on our students' lives after graduation, whether it is the job, after college, or graduate studies. We have to commit to what SUNY calls applied learning and to complement the excellent work our faculty do in the classroom. Applied learning has many forms, discussed before, including undergraduate research, study abroad, internships, service learning, and entrepreneurship. We should encourage internships with academic credit or digital badges, a potentially new form of non-credit credentialing. The Blackstone Launchpad is a powerful example of applied learning and resource for all of our students. In this case, to cultivate an entrepreneurial mindset and business development skills across all disciplines. Meanwhile, we also need to work to better define and tell our story. We are working on that with a rebranding campaign. Telling our story in compelling ways is critical to student recruitment. And telling a powerful story of UAlbany is also important as we seek support from the state legislature and Congress for public resources and increased support from our alumni and friends. I can assure you that we'll be telling that story throughout the comprehensive fundraising campaign, which is currently in the quiet phase, but is already consuming appropriately much of my time. I see deans, center directors, chairs, and individual faculty and staff stepping up to work more closely with the development team as they make the case to donors. And finally, as we work to secure the resources to meet our mission, we must also be disciplined in our budgeting, always examining our operations for improvements and efficiencies. As we approach the end of a decade since the budget cuts of 2008 and 2009, which I also lived through at CUNY, we must focus on how we can steward our resources responsibly without abandoning our principles. Families do this all the time, changing expenditures to match changing resources, needs, and opportunities. Their goal is preserving the fundamental mission of a happy, healthy, productive family. We need to be that family here, caring, conversant with each other, understanding, but disciplined. Early on in this transition, our leadership team came together in a series of meetings. We decided that we could not wait to push forward with major projects like strategic planning and the fundraising campaign. It was heartening to me that you agreed. We filled the Strategic Planning Steering Committee in 2 days after issuing the invitations to a lot of very busy people. And our donors stand in solidarity with us on our campaign. As interim president, I could not be more confident about our future, because as a university on the move, we are strong. We keep moving forward with purpose and goals in mind. We rise to meet our challenges. We seize the momentum that we are creating as a community, because we truly believe our time is now. Join me in that vision. Thank you. Now, my understanding is we have about 25 minutes for questions, and I really want this to be interactive. So I'm going to ask you to use the microphone on either side when you want to ask a question, and that way we can capture the audio for those folks that might listen to this at home. So, first question. Gotta be one. Come on, I'm not that good. We got a question over here.
I thought someone was standing over there. It's a general sort of question. I first met you almost 2 years ago when you had begun as the provost, and we've worked together in a variety of ways since then. I'm interested in how, now that you've assumed a new position at the university, has your perspective on the university changed as you've shifted from being provost to being president?
That's a great question. Thank you. Provosts sort of look down on the hierarchy through the deans and chairs to the faculty and to the students. And I think that is a great privilege and a great opportunity to watch a university really work. When I became president, that vision was replaced by a vision that was sort of more up and out. I began to talk to legislatures and donors and government officials and other presidents. And I carried with me that downward-facing knowledge of the good work that you do and expressed it out. And the emotional reaction to that experience was one of enormous positivity. I really had no idea how well received we are in the community, how much people hope that we succeed. They hope that we are as good as we are, we get better every year. How much SUNY and the government and our donors and the citizens of this community and the mayor and our legislators are really behind us, how they want to help us. But we have to do this ourselves. We have to rise up ourselves, and I know that they will be there with us to help us do that. So that's my biggest joy and challenge, is to get out as much as possible and project and receive that resonance with the community of how good we are as a university and how much we can do going forward. Thank you. Next question. Here comes one.
President Stellar, could you talk a little bit about your efforts in the area of diversity, equity, and inclusion with regard to faculty as well as student engagement and ensuring that UAlbany continues to be the welcoming and inclusive campus that you made it as provost, and how you continue to do that as president?
Thank you. That's another great question. I can't wander around without losing the microphone, so excuse me if I appear fidgety. But I think this is a very important element, and it shows up every time we have an incident, or anyone does in America. And that is the balance between the faculty and the students, particularly in an institution like ours, which has nearly 40% of our students that are diverse, and a good 40% of our students who are first-generation college-goers. Now, this is a tough challenge because hiring is hard in any time, and we want to be excellent as we do it. But there must be ways that we can think together to improve the diversity of our faculty, and I'll go back to that point. So one event, which I didn't mention, is that on December 5th, we're going to have a conversation with the students, led by the students. They asked us to a critical conversation on how do we do faculty hiring in a better way to promote diversity. What are our ideas? What can they learn from us? What can they show to us? This goes to my point about having a conversation about this issue over and over and over again in various forms, from learning about implicit racial bias as a sort of social psychological phenomena to discussing with the 12,000 undergraduates and 5,000 graduate students how we can build a community of diverse faculty. This is only one point. We have so many other issues as we manage this climate on campus, where we have to have interactions between students, we have interactions between community members. The mayor told me that 25% of people in Albany live in poverty, and that there is a correlation between racial and ethnic groups in that statistic. She asked me if there wasn't a way we couldn't use the diversity of our population to help provide role models to those students It could be as simple as one woman who graduated from us with a biochemistry major who went and took a year off and volunteered at Albany High School so 13-year-old girls would see what a black woman looked like who was a scientist. We need to do more of this. We need to share it. We need to talk about it. We need to leverage it. I think faculty hiring is one element, and this conversation coming up on the 5th is another one. But we will come back to this topic over and over and over again. I do not have solutions. I just have questions. I want you to join with me in those questions. Especially now, I think it's a very important time that we use our power as a community to explore how we become better and better as people at getting along with each other, at achieving excellence that comes with diversity. So I'm happy to take follow-up questions if that's the case. There is one other small point to Mark's question, and that was inclusion of students. That one's a little bit harder. I find it harder to meet with students now that I'm out more. But I do think all of us should make every effort we can to talk to the undergraduates and the graduate students especially, but particularly undergraduates, as much as we can. You faculty are the most important thing to them. I've watched the families come and they just want to meet a faculty member. It doesn't even matter if it's in their discipline sometimes. It's like magic. I talked to a faculty member. And so I think if you could just share that with the students a little bit and keep doing it, I know it can be exhausting because there's so many of them, it would really help us to build that community. And you students, please come talk to us. One of the greatest things I've seen over and over again in all the universities I've been at is that you think we don't care. And so you don't raise issues with us. You don't talk to us. I don't know whether that's an age difference thing or whether it's the fact that the faculty are so revered, but you have to not do that. You have to talk to us. We need to be a community together. And then, to repeat myself, we got to take that on the road. We got to get out in Albany. We got to get out around the world. We got to spread the word that the University at Albany is an excellent place. And I want to elaborate on that one more point, and then I'll stop. We have 170,000 alumni. That is a force that can help us handle the career ambitions of 12,500 undergraduates. We're going to try to harness that now, and there's a lot of enthusiasm by doing things like job shadowing in New York City, where a lot of our alumni live. It's just one place to begin. That's a place where a lot of our students come from. So I think there's a variety of creative ideas that will come out of the strategic plan that you might have that we need to dialogue about, that goes to everybody, that emphasizes our diversity and inclusion, but also emphasizes the cooperation between the elements of the community. It would be my fondest hope as your interim president that we make a step forward in talking to each other across the divisions that could divide us, but we won't let them. I have another question.
I'm Jose Cruz from Rockefeller College, Political Science. This is a follow-up question to your answer to Jim's question. So now that you have had an opportunity to talk to legislators, politicians, and so on, what is your sense about the willingness, the possibility of increased state funding for the university in the short term, the long term, and then more generally, what is your strategic approach to fundraising with both the state legislature and private donors? Is there a targeted approach that focuses on areas of strength or emerging areas that are considered having greater potential of attracting more students, or is it a combination of sort of a targeted approach and a sort of a more broad type of appeal to private donors?
I really like this question. So I think when I start out at the highest possible level about how UAlbany is on the move. And that's good for 30 seconds. And then they want me to drop and talk about something specific. So it's very useful, and the development team does this well, if I can be prepared with what's in their interest or just ask them. And that's where being provost is a little bit helpful, because I know some things. I have a lot to learn, and I've only been here 2 years, and some of you have been here more years than I have months. But I think we have to drop down to the level of detail and get something that grabs them emotionally. And it might have to do with where they came from. It might have to do with something in Rockefeller College that made their life. Often I find that the people in government are double and even triple alums from the university, and that's a good starting point. Sometimes they just want to come back and appear in a classroom, which is a cultivation step to getting them to do some more. And many of these people are degreed by us at a level that this is a good thing. They have all the credentials that we would want for them to even teach a course. And then that leads to insights. The best things that we can do with these people is to show them our students. They just melt our hearts. I don't know what it is about older people like me when they meet a student who resonates with them across the decades of their lives. But that's the moment to go in and ask them for a gift, for a scholarship. Now, I'm going to do a lot of this. It's my job, and the deans are doing a lot of it, and the vice presidents are doing a lot of it. And by the way, we treat the legislatures as though they were donors. Sorry, folks. It's just not your money. It's the state's money. But it's the same idea. And I think that what happens is we then stitch together these little priorities of things that are at a level that are graspable. Some folks really just do want to give to the university, but most people have to have an idea they can cling to. I'll add that we need you to do this with us. It's not possible to be a great university without tapping into your alumni. There's not enough money. It's even true in the privates. And I'm sorry, but if we want to buy a bottle of water, it costs us the same thing as it does for an institution that charges $60,000 tuition. Now, if it's in our religion to be affordable, and it is, we need help with this. And now, again, is the time to get out and talk to the donors. So I see every one of you in this room, including the students, as development agents, working with the development team to explain what it is we're doing here in a level of detail that resonates with them. But it would be also useful if you could build that back up to the high level and say that we are a community, we are on the move, we are improving. But here's something I specifically want to talk to you about. I also think we have to increase our work in this area. I don't think we have enough people on task here to manage what I just said. And this is a challenge to my friend Fardeen Sinai sitting here. And I'll say this, there are many places where we don't have enough money. You can be discouraged about this if you want. I sometimes get discouraged about it. But mainly I see this as an opportunity to live up to our philosophical mission to be affordable. Pound for pound, person for person, I can tell you, having come from a $60,000 a year tuition granting place, we do more work, more good than they do, ounce for ounce. And we're going to rise up and succeed just like they will, and we're going to still be affordable. Thank you. Next question.
Keith Earle, physics. I'd like
Keith,
to
you're dressed entirely in black. All I can see is your head. It's floating there next to the microphone. Excuse me for that.
It's okay. I'm dressed like a techie. But I wanted to follow up on the notion of specifics that you introduced in response to Professor Cruz's question. And that is, you outlined a long list of initiatives and programs that you believe are important for the mission and the future of the university. And I was just curious to know if you could perhaps list a small number, say 3 to 5, of those programs or initiatives that you think are the most significant or most important.
Well, I think that we have two answers to that question. One is what's the most important to us, and the second is what's the most important to the students as they vote with their feet. So one of the things that we're seeing a lot of attention on from the students and from the outside world is cybersecurity. We have a smallish program running in business that's moving to Homeland Security that does virtual internships, and we're doing that with a small company. We see a lot of attention, especially now that I'm engaged with Darrell Wheeler in meeting the semifinalists for the dean search. And of course, cybersecurity is supposed to be a field where there's hundreds of thousands of unanswered jobs, begged for by big companies with deep pockets like JP Morgan, and something that our planet feels threatened by. I mean, we just had an election and we were worried that somebody would mess with the election in some way. So I think that's an example of something that is of interest to the outside world that captures us. To pick an example of something that is interesting to us, but may need to be educational for the outside world, I think, is the commitment to arts and humanities. I think if we do that well, if we become known as a university that really takes this seriously, I think not only can we have better educated students, yes, engineers that can write, Kim Boyer, who always says that when he gets more engineers in the Engineering and Applied Sciences College, it'll drive revenue to the departments that have to teach the engineers things they need to do to be real people and work well on the job. But I also think it does something for us. I invite you to come to this concert of ideas and engage in a dialogue with me, because I think there's something that happens in the humanities, and I'm trading a little bit on my neuroscience background here, that is maybe subliminal, that joins us together. If I go with my wife to the art museum and I don't really know art, I admire the painting because it's beautiful. She admires the technique, the brush strokes, the composition, knows the place of that art in history, and perhaps has a much richer experience. But we come out of that together, even though we're widely divergent in our backgrounds. I think this happens a lot. And I'd like to have that conversation with you at the Concert of Ideas and beyond. I think this could be something that we could use to draw us together as a community, to get our subliminal worlds to come together so we would see each other across the vast disciplines that separate us. What does a physicist have in common with someone in Rockefeller College? Well, maybe we could get to there by having more emphasis on the arts and humanities. Now, that's just a crazy idea, but that would be our idea if you liked it, if you brought it forward in the strategic plan. So that's two examples, and I hope I can get away with two because I've got some people on either side now. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Heidi Andrade from the School of Ed.
Thank you.
Your references to community prompted me to ask this question. I just learned that some of our professional staff colleagues don't feel welcome at this meeting because we call it a faculty meeting. So that never occurred to me, but I just heard about that. And so I'm wondering if we should consider either changing the name of the meeting, this event, or otherwise making people feel more welcome like a community.
All right, I think that is an important idea. I didn't realize that either, and I think maybe we'll ask the Senate if it can make sure that it's more inclusive. I'm pleased that some students are here because I thought they would be the group that would feel left out, but now I'm learning about another group. And then let's do something about this. Why don't you talk to the dean and see if you can get me to come over and meet with the staff? And maybe if we do that, I can make up a little bit for the accidental insult of not having labeled them properly in this meeting, because we need the staff. The staff are very important, and frankly, they often know things that no one else knows because they have decades and decades of experience here. So I would be very happy to do that, to try to show some compensation. And this is a perfect example of where communication with you really helps me, because this was never the intent. I didn't know it. Now I'm educated, and maybe I can take a step and actually learn something selfishly myself from a meeting with them in your college.
Well, we dragged them over here anyway, so they just heard you.
All right. Let's have a round of applause for the staff. The meeting is still on if you want it. Yeah.
Hi, thank you, President Steller. I'd like to follow up a little bit on Keith Earle's your response to Keith Earle's question. I'm Nancy Newman. I'm the chair of music and theater, but I don't want to speak from a narrowly fine arts perspective, but rather ask you to expand on what you're saying about arts and humanities and its importance, perhaps not just from our concerns internally here at the university, but rather I'm struck, and I'm going to put you a little bit on the spot here, so please forgive me, but I was struck in listening to the reports of events last night that the lack of higher education played a role in the election. And I was wondering if you had thoughts about our mission as an institution of public higher education as to how we can address that, and particularly the role that arts and the humanities plays in educating the public at large to the essential issues of our times.
All right, this is a great question. Let me go a little bit personal without his permission. I think it'll be all right. The guy who is going to lead us in the concert of ideas, his name is John Cimino. And he was introduced to us by Rob Brodnick and Joe Brennan, who is our marketing vice president, and Rob is the search consultant for the committee. And they just knew him. And so I got to talk to him, and it went somewhere, and so I took him to dinner. And I found out that this guy started out at MIT as a biologist, I think, or maybe a physicist, and went into teaching high school when he discovered that he could sing. And his singing career took him all the way to singing with Pavarotti. And then he decided, along the way, to form this company to try to unite these two parts of his life and produce something that is obviously working well, because he and his little troupe, including a member of your faculty, go around the country with this concert of ideas notion, helping communities, whether it's the Red Cross that served Katrina that was burnt out, or some corporation or some university, come together and develop a brainstorming session that is deeper and more powerful than can usually be achieved in a short time, and that leaves behind a sense of community among the 200 to 300 people that we expect at this event. So please sign up for that event. So I think this represents a way to do this extra thing that I mentioned, besides providing with useful skills, but giving some sort of a context, some sort of a gut-level understanding that accompanies the academic knowledge of facts and theories that leads one to be an educated person. You know, our employers say that your students in higher education are well-trained theoretically. They know what the Sarbanes-Oxley law is. What I'm not sure is that they can use that knowledge with my customers. That's one of the reasons we push applied learning. We'd like them to get out there while they're sophomores and juniors and see if that is something that they can get a feeling for, and also maybe get some feeling for their field. This is my field, or maybe I don't want to do this. I thought I wanted to be in accounting, but now I absolutely don't, now that I've worked in it. So I think this is the same thing. I think it's this way that we have of deciding things. And I think that is what was missing in the uneducated electorate. Now, please let me be a little careful here, because I don't want to get political on you, but I think some people make decisions on the basis of anger and fear, and they do that without the reflective context that comes on top of it. If you have studied history, perhaps you're less likely to repeat it. If you've studied art, perhaps you're more likely to have insights that cross boundaries and be interdisciplinary. I think that higher education is changing the planet. I just think we have a long way to go in order to produce that across the planet. So that's sort of what I meant. Now, I think we have time for one more question. Is that right, Jim?
Hello, I'm Karen Reinhold from the Math Department, and thank you. I'm always concerned about our graduate programs, and I was very happy to see the blue ribbon panel on graduate stipends that had moved the stipends into the right direction. However, we are still short from the levels of our peer institutions. So I want to ask you, first of all, when are we going to see the raise in the stipends that was proposed by the Blue Ribbon Panel, and if you have any plans for the future to move us further closer to to the level that peer institutions nationwide are having.
Right, I'm going to ask Kevin Williams to respond to that in a second, but let me just say one thing. Kevin, you might want to make your way to the microphone so they can hear you. Kevin chaired the Blue Ribbon Commission on grad stipends. What I want to say while Kevin's making his way to the microphone is that we also have the same basic issues in the Contingent Faculty Blue Ribbon Commission. And this is a real challenge for us because it's quite clear that if we got a big gift from somebody, that we could fix this problem right away. But if we have to take it out of our existing structure, it's going to take us some time. Now, so far, you have been working with us to give us the time we need to make step increases in both the grad stipends and in the contingent faculty salaries, at least for piecemeal hired contingent faculty. And so what I would propose to you, having given Kevin a few minutes to think, an answer with some numbers, is that we just keep at this and constantly monitor our groups, either types of groups, and talk to them so that we can find a point that in the future that we can reach the parity that we need. We need to compensate people fairly, whether it's a stipend for graduate study or whether it's for teaching in our classroom. And I'm sorry that I added a second component. Kevin, do you want to make a comment about the grad stipends?
Well, as I reported to the Senate last spring, the report came out 2 years ago. We've put in requests each year for stipend increases. We've had three incremental increases, three increases over the last three years. We've closed the gap for each of our major sub areas. Still got a gap to go. Put in a request last year that was partially funded, and we'll continue to put in requests through compact planning.
Okay, let me just close by thanking you again for coming here, and I really do mean this. I would appreciate it if you would stop me on campus and talk to me or send me emails. I really do love the interaction with you, not only in the area of your scholarship, you faculty, where I will learn something, but also to share your perspectives with me on what needs fixing. I want to particularly single out the students in the audience for that, because I don't think you do talk to us enough. If we're going to do this thing together, if we're going to build an excellent university and stay within our affordable mission, we just have to work together. And thank you. I believe we're doing that. Thank you.